The cold, damp air hangs heavy over the village at dawn. A raven screams once, sharp and echoing, before vanishing into the fog. Its wings slice the silence like a knife through old cloth. Smoke curls lazily from the thatched roofs, rising like prayers from the dying. Beneath the low sky, dew clings to every stone and branch, as if the earth itself is weeping in secret. The hearths crackle faintly inside the cottages, but the warmth never seems to reach the corners. It is a fragile, reluctant heat, always on the edge of vanishing. From behind broken shutters, eyes peer out, tired, hollow eyes that have seen too many winters and too few harvests. The clang of a distant blacksmith's hammer rings across the fields, metronomic and mournful, like a bell tolling not for death, but for labor. Endless labor. Women bend over buckets, their hands cracked and red with cold as they draw water from a stubborn well. Children gather kindling in silence, their small boots sinking into the mud like anchors. Men scrape frost from the hides of the horses, breath rising like ghostly smoke from their nostrils. No one speaks, words are rationed like salt, even laughter is scarce. And yet, beneath this bleak ritual, there are whispers, always whispers, of those who once thrived here. Of golden grain taller than a man's shoulders, of beasts fat enough to feed entire families, of a world that now exists only in memory, half dreamed and half buried. In the center of it all walks Elira. Her steps are slow, measured, her joints creaking louder than the frost-bitten branches underfoot. Her back has curved into a question mark with time. Draped in a woolen cloak worn thin by decades of storms, she carries a bundle of herbs close to her chest like a holy relic. The scent of thyme and ash follows her. The villagers part for her like reeds in a current, not out of reverence, but out of fear, not of her, but of what she remembers. Elira is the last of the memory keepers, the ones who do not read from parchment, but from scars. They say she once nursed a noble's child with milk and honey during the time of iron rains. They say her husband vanished beneath the soil during the famine of years past. They say she speaks to the wind and listens to the fire. What is true, no one knows, but all feel it, that where Elira walks, the past walks too. Inside her cottage, light flickers like a trapped spirit. Herbs dangle from the beams, their shadows dancing like witches' fingers. On the stone table lies a single loaf of black bread, dense, dry and cracked like the soil outside. She slices it slowly. The blade makes no sound. Bread, in this place, is more than food. It is testament, it is promise, it is sacrifice. Every bite chews through the ghosts of the field, of the farmer who fell, of the child who did not live to see the next moon. The bread is bitter, not only in taste, but in memory. Made from barley long dried, milled in haste, baked without firewood enough to crisp it. She chews in silence, swallows sorrow. Outside, the village continues its ritual of survival. A woman sings softly as she sifts flour, off-key, but brave. The tune is ancient, older than the church that crumbles at the edge of the woods. A man sharpens a sickle by the well, his eyes never leaving the rust-colored edge. The grindstone hums like a whisper of judgment. Children laugh, briefly, brightly, until an elder hushes them with a look. Even joy must be rationed here. There are no celebrations in the village anymore. Only commemorations, only mourning made quiet. And yet the people persist. They tend to dying sheep as if they were kings. They replant seeds in soil that no longer listens. They pray to saints who no longer answer. Each act, no matter how small, is an act of defiance. Against the wind, against the hunger, against the silence. Elira walks again, this time to the edge of the village, to a place the children are told never to go. The field of stones. There are no names carved into them, only runes worn smooth by rain and time. They tilt in strange directions, like broken teeth in a forgotten mouth. It is here she lays her herbs, not on one grave, but on many. Her lips move in silence, no one can hear the prayer, and yet all feel it. She remembers a time when the graves were fewer, when the dead were buried with song and fire, not with silence and mud. When the grain still grew, when children still dreamed. When food was not the first and final thought each morning. She remembers the ones who made a choice, the ones who left, caravans of men and women who walked west, chasing rumors of abundance. Only a few returned. They did not speak of what they saw, but their eyes were filled with ash and blood. They had seen the price of hope. As the sun reaches its feeble zenith, barely more than a pale glow behind the clouds, a shadow moves across the village, not of man nor beast, but of reckoning. A rider arrives, wrapped in a dark cloak, his horse gaunt and trembling, ribs showing like blades beneath its hide. He says nothing. He only drops a bundle at Elira's feet. Wrapped in cloth soaked with old blood, a sigil burned into the fabric, a crest once known, now feared. Elira does not flinch, she only nods. The rider vanishes before anyone dares speak. The bundle is not opened until nightfall. Inside grains, scarce and precious, but wrapped around them, a note scrawled in trembling hand. We are coming. Burn nothing. Speak to no one. They are watching. The villagers do not sleep that night. They watch the horizon. They extinguish their torches early. Even the blacksmith's hammer goes silent. Elira sits by her fire, unmoving. She remembers. She always remembers. Once, in her youth, there was a man named Halden, full of fire, full of dreams. He tried to rally the village, to build walls, to carve order out of fear. He failed, but not because he was wrong. Because the hunger was stronger. Because survival has no use for heroes. Just for memory. Outside, the fog thickens. Wolves cry in the distance, but the villagers do not move. They are not afraid of beasts. Beasts only kill. Men take everything. As dawn prepares to break once more, Elira whispers a single word into the fire. Soon, the flames flicker, the bread grows colder, and in the distance, a new sound begins to rise. Not the hammer, nor the bell, nor the child's cry, but drums. Low, steady, approaching. The village is quiet, not the quiet of rest, nor of peace, but the kind of silence that wraps around the bones of the world, tight and breathless, as if the land itself is holding its breath. Above, the sky hangs low and colorless, a pale gray shroud smothering what little light remains. Below, the earth stretches outward in every direction, barren, choked, indifferent. The wind drifts through the valley, like a whisper too frightened to speak. It carries the scent of wet soil and something darker, the faint, unrelenting perfume of decay, drifting in from the forgotten fields. A scent that no longer shocks the senses, but settles slowly into the skin. The last leaves have fallen. They litter the ground like yellowed pages from a ruined book, brittle and half-buried. The trees, stripped and skeletal, claw upward toward nothing. At the edge of the village stands Isolde, young, but with eyes aged by winters too heavy for a single soul to bear. She clutches her shawl, pulling the fraying wool tight across her shoulders. It is more memory than warmth now. Her gaze stays low, fixed to the dirt beneath her feet, as though afraid to meet the sky. She does not cry. No one cries anymore. Even tears have learned to ration themselves. Behind her, the village breathes slowly, like something wounded but stubborn. Its cottages slump against time. Chickens no longer cluck, dogs no longer bark. Even the church bell, once rung each morning with pride, has long since cracked. Only the wind speaks now. And what it says, no one repeats. Once the fields beyond the ridge sang with golden wheat. Once the river brought fish enough to fill 3 tables. Once the children played in the dusk and dreamed in the dawn. Now the harvest has withered into dust. The livestock cough and limp and vanish, and the children, those who remain, move like ghosts. They no longer ask for stories. They no longer chase the sun. They simply wait. Isolde has waited long enough. As the light slips behind the horizon and the sky bruises into dusk, she gathers her basket, half empty, always, and steps beyond the village's edge, into the woods. The forest waits, quiet and cold. There is no welcome here, only remembering. Generations of women once walked this path, teaching root from rot, leaf from poison. They passed their knowledge like fire between cupped hands. It was never written, it was never spoken too loudly, only whispered, only shown. Now Isolde walks alone. Each footstep breaks the silence, just slightly, crunching brittle leaves, sinking into frost-damp moss. Above, the branches interlace, like ribs of a sleeping beast. Below, the soil pulses with something long buried. Even the birds no longer sing, only crows, only warnings. She kneels beneath a crooked elm. The ground is hard, stubborn with cold. Her fingers, numb and scraped, begin to dig. Not with tools. With need. The roots lie deep now, further each season, as though hiding. A thin, gnarled strand finally breaks the surface. She pulls it gently, carefully, as though lifting the memory of something long dead. She sniffs it. Wormwood. Not edible, but useful. Useful is enough. She moves from tree to tree, finding nettle, some dried elderberry, a sliver of yarrow, but the forest gives less with each passing week. It is tired, too, and poisoned. A stream trickles nearby, slow, quiet, glinting beneath moonlight like a blade. Once its waters healed fevers and blessed new births. Now it stinks of rot. She crouches beside it. The water looks still, calm. But Isolde knows better. A fox drank here 2 weeks ago. They buried it the next morning, its eyes wide, its tongue blackened. Still she cups her hands. Not to drink, to wash. The cold bites her skin. A reminder, she is alive. But for how much longer? She stares into the trees, remembering the voice of her mother, soft, sure, telling her where to find the herbs that could save a life, and the ones that could end one. Her mother's voice is gone now, swallowed by fever, buried with the others. Only the forest remembers. She stands again, arms heavy with what little she's gathered. Somewhere behind her, a branch snaps. She freezes. The woods are not empty. She waits. Silence. Only the wind. Still, she does not move for a long time. Predators are rare now, not because they are gone, but because they are hungry too. And hunger makes monsters out of all things. She begins the slow walk home. The stars begin to show, scattered, piercing, watching, always watching. As she nears the village again, she passes the old shrine, a simple stone, draped in moss. Long ago people left offerings here, bits of bread, wild flowers, whispered thanks. Now only dust. She pauses, then reaches into her basket and places a single berry atop the stone. An offering, not of hope, but of memory. She says nothing, but the silence receives her prayer. The village lights flicker ahead, tiny flames. Behind shuttered windows, a single child runs across the square, thin as smoke. A dog barks once, then stops. Isolde enters her home. Inside, cold walls, a hearth unlit, and her father coughing in the corner. A dry rattle that never stops. She does not sigh. She unpacks the herbs, crushes the root, boils the leaves. Her hands move like ritual, like breath. There is no magic here, only effort, only survival. She feeds him bitter tea with a wooden spoon. He swallows without protest. She sits beside him. They say nothing. Outside, the wind grows louder. The roof creaks. The world feels thinner somehow, as though something old and terrible is pressing closer, waiting for the last candle to flicker out. Isolde leans her head back, eyes closed. Her thoughts drift again to the woods, to the silence beneath the soil, to the poisoned stream, to the roots that grow deeper with each year, and to the question that no one dares to ask aloud: how long can a people survive in a land that no longer wants them? The fire cracks once, then dies, and the village dreams in silence. The wind howls across the barren fields like a wounded beast. It does not whisper, it wails, dragging dust and frost in its teeth, tearing at the stitched seams of cloaks, clawing at the timber bones of forgotten barns. The land lies stripped bare beneath it, raw and cracked as though nature itself has turned its face away in shame. Where once grew barley and song, there is now only ash-colored soil. No birds sing, no deer stir. Only the wind remains, and in its path, a village, small, weathered, defiant, crouches in a hollow between the mountains. Like a wounded thing curled in on itself, it hides in the valley's crook, its thatched roofs bent under age and sorrow, its wooden fences more ritual than defense. The mountains rise on all sides like silent sentinels, judging, unmoving. Their peaks, crowned in snow, catch the last rays of a pale sun that does not warm. Within the village square, a fire burns low, its glow a fragile protest against the cold. The embers crackle, spitting sparks into the darkness. Around it, shapes gather, shadows with faces, people who have forgotten laughter. They do not speak, unless they must. For words, too, carry a cost. Torvald sits among them, not with them. Among them, bent, wrapped in layers of cloth and silence, the old man cradles a bowl of porridge that has long gone cold. It sticks to the wooden edges, more memory than meal. He does not eat, he stares. His eyes, faded blue pale as thawing ice, are not fixed on the fire, but through it, into another world. They say, Torvald once carved stories into oak with his bare hands, that he spoke 7 tongues and drank with kings, that he danced once, danced, truly danced, with a woman whose laughter made flowers bloom in midwinter. But that was before the rot came to the roots, before the rivers turned to silt, before the plague marked the faces of children, and the hunger hollowed out even the strongest men. Now, Torvald is a relic, an echo, a map of what once was. Few speak to him, fewer still listen, but all remember, for it is he who remembers for them. He has lived through all the endings, and yet, still, he is here. A wind gust kicks up a cloud of ash from the fire's edge, scattering coals across the dirt. A child squeals and scurries back. No one scolds her. The fire is sacred. Its warmth, fleeting though it is life itself. In the silence that follows, Torvald speaks. His voice is brittle, barely more than a rasp. They used to feast on midwinter's eve, he says, as though reciting a ghost's confession. Roasted game, spiced wine, bread soft as clouds. We danced until the snow melted beneath our boots. The villagers say nothing, but the words land like stones in water. I watch them die, he continues. Not from sword or flame, but from silence. Hunger took the loudest first, pride took the rest. The wind answers him with a long mournful moan. A shutter bangs loose in the distance. An old dog growls once, then curls deeper into straw. Torvald lowers his spoon, untouched. They buried my son with no name, he says. There were too many by then. His hand trembles, but not from cold. No one interrupts, no one dares, because beneath every hut in this village, beneath every hearthstone and every patch of churned earth, lie the bones of someone's price. Survival here is not about courage, it is not about strength. It is about the willingness to lose more than one should, to lose again and again, and again, and keep moving. The fire flares suddenly as someone adds a log. The faces flicker. For a moment, Torvald's eyes catch the light, and seem almost young. There was a time, he murmurs, when the land answered us, when seeds listened, when the wind didn't sound like a scream. The people shift uncomfortably, because deep down they remember too, not through age, but through stories, through lullabies sung half-heartedly to children who no longer sleep through the night, through half-burned portraits, hidden in floorboards, through the way a mother stares at an empty pot, her lips moving in a prayer she doesn't believe. One of the women, Alna, places a shawl around Torvald's shoulders. She does not speak. He does not thank her. The gesture is not kindness. It is memory. She was 5 when her mother died. Torvald carried her to the healer's hut. She remembers the smell of his cloak, wood smoke and grief. Behind them, The stars begin to emerge, sharper than nails against the velvet sky. They seem closer now, as if they've been descending slowly for years, inching toward Earth, waiting to see who survives the longest. Judging, always judging. Far off, a wolf howls, not from hunger, but from instinct. From memory, from the echo of something it too has lost. The people stir. A low murmur of fear ripples across the circle, not of the wolf, of what always follows sound in the night. But Torvald remains still. There is an old tale, he says, softer now, more to himself than to anyone. That famine is not just emptiness, it is a spirit. A shadow that moves from village to village, devouring warmth, devouring light. It tests you. He closes his eyes, and if you beg, it stays longer. Somewhere behind the fire, a girl begins to cry. The sound is quickly muffled by her mother's hand, not out of cruelty, but out of survival. The fire begins to die again. Its light pulls inward, flickering, afraid. Torvald reaches down with shaking hands and feeds it the last of his porridge. The gesture is quiet, ridiculous, holy. Let it burn, he whispers. Around him, silence blooms like frost. No one moves, no one speaks, but something changes. A boy steps forward, perhaps 10 winters old. He removes a small carving from his coat, a wolf, chipped and rough, and sets it beside the fire. Another woman places dried moss atop the flames. A man tosses a few bones, not as sacrifice, as memory, as proof they are still here. The fire grows, not large, but steady. And for the first time that night, the villagers do not look at the sky, they look at each other, not with hope, but with recognition. Torvald watches them, and for the first time in many, many years, he smiles, not with joy, but with relief. As the wind calms for just a breath, a question hangs in the air. What is the price of endurance? And how many tomorrows can a people buy with only shadows and ash? In the distance, a figure appears at the edge of the valley path, hooded, alone, carrying something wrapped in cloth. Alira will know what it means, but for now, the fire burns, the bowl is empty, and the stars still watch. The world is gray, not simply in color, but in essence, as though the sky itself has forgotten what light feels like. The sun is a myth today, hidden behind a shroud of clouds so thick it feels as if heaven has turned its back. Rain threatens, but does not fall. The sky teeters on the edge of tears. The village sleeps beneath a veil of mist draped in fog that clings to rooftops like memory. The cobblestones are slick with dew and ash. Chimneys breathe faint trails of smoke into the heavy air, the scent of burning wood mixing with the wet musk of moss and decay. Everything smells, ancient, damp, waiting. Time moves slowly here. Each hour is pulled through the eye of a needle, a careful, quiet ritual to preserve what little life remains. And in the center of it all, walks Edda, alone, always alone. Her figure moves through the wet morning like a shadow wrapped in wool. Her steps make no sound. Her eyes, though open, seem to look inward, as if she is reading some memory written deep inside her own skin. Her hands are cracked and red, wrapped in linen stiff with herbal stains. She carries a bundle of twisted roots and dried stems. Sage, fever, few, thyme, useless against what plagues this place. But still she gathers, still she brews, still she tries. They call her healer, but she does not heal. She eases, she delays, she comforts, and when needed she lets go. Inside the homes that dot the village's edge, bodies shiver beneath threadbare furs, coughs echo like ghosts, eyes stare up at beams as if counting the splinters between breaths. Mothers hum lullabies to children who no longer respond. She has seen it all, the fevers that burn from the inside, the eyes that cloud with gray, the hands that forget how to hold. There is no cure, only care, only time, only Edda. She passes the bakery long closed, the scent of yeast and warmth once spilled from its doors. Now only cold brick and rotting wood remain. She remembers the baker, Jarl, and his wife. How they danced once during the summer fire festival, flour still on their hands. Both gone now, both buried near the stone well. She does not cry. She hasn't for years. There is no space for mourning when there are still lungs to soothe, wounds to bind, fires to stoke. The path curves through the village like a forgotten scar. Children used to chase chickens here, their laughter bubbling over like spring water. Now even the chickens are quiet. They do not lay. They barely move. Edda stops beside a door. She knocks once gently. A woman answers, eyes swollen with sleeplessness. Inside a child groans. Edda enters without words. Her presence is not loud. It is not grand. It is a sigh, a stillness, a breath taken after fear. The room is dark, damp. The fire is weak. The child lies motionless, his skin pale, his breath thin. His mother kneels beside him, lips pressed to knuckles. Edda unwraps her herbs, boils water, crushes root. A ritual she has done 100 times. It will not save him, but it might let him sleep, might dull the pain. That is enough. She holds the boy's hand. It is small, bird-like. His eyes flutter open for a moment. She smiles. Drink, she whispers. He obeys. Outside, thunder rumbles faintly like a war too far to flee. As she works, she hums under her breath. A low, strange melody, one her grandmother taught her, from the old times. Not a prayer, not a lullaby, something older. When she leaves, the boy is sleeping. The mother tries to thank her. Edda only nods. Her voice is not meant for comfort. She steps into the mist once more. The village watches, not with eyes but with memory. They remember the time before her when the sick died alone, when the dying screamed until silence took them. She changed that, not with miracles, but with presence. She walks past the old forge. The anvil is rusted, the tools scattered. The blacksmith took his own life 2 winters ago. No one spoke of it, but Edda found the body, cleaned it, burned what was needed, buried the rest. No one asked her to, but no one else would have. She walks past the chapel, its doors hanging half open, the altar covered in dust. The gods have not been seen here in years. People still light candles, but they look to her. In the absence of divine mercy, they cling to human endurance, and Edda is the thread. She reaches her home, a stone hut at the edge of the forest, where the trees begin to rise like silent judges. Her garden is nearly empty. The soil does not yield any more, but still she tills, still she hopes. Inside, jars of tincture, stacks of cloth, bundles of dried stalks, a cot, a hearth. No decorations, no comfort, only purpose. She lights a fire, sorts her herbs, cleans her tools. Outside, the wind picks up, brushing the mist aside, just long enough to show how empty the roads have become. How many doors are now nailed shut. How many shoes sit beside thresholds, with no feet left to fill them. She stares into the flames, not to warm herself, but to remember. She remembers the faces, the names, all of them, even the ones who begged her to let them go, especially those. The fire crackles softly. A storm is coming. She can feel it in her joints. The cold moves differently now, not just across the skin, but inside the bone. It whispers warnings. She closes her eyes. The silence presses in, not hostile, not cruel, just present, a constant companion. And in that stillness, Edda thinks not of cures, not of death, but of breath, of the fragile space between heartbeats, of the weight that presses on all things that survive too long. Outside, a knock, another home, another body, another story. She rises, her legs ache, her hands tremble, but still, she walks, because that's what the living do. They walk, they hold, they bury, and sometimes, they wait for the rain. The morning fog rises from the ground like breath from a dying mouth. It rolls slowly, deliberately, cloaking the earth in ghost-white veils. It creeps through the hollows and hedgerows, across the meadows, over the graves. It blurs the lines between past and present, life and loss. On this day, time does not move. It stalls like a clock with a broken heart, and the world seems to wait. For what? None can say. But all feel it. The village lies still, caught in the grip of an ancient rhythm older than kings, older than scripture, a rhythm that is not sung, but endured. Each season, each sunrise, is a verse in this slow, sorrowful chant. The air smells faintly of ash. Not fire, not danger, just ending. And far in the distance, the faint crackling of flame, someone burning refuse, or prayer, or grief. In the center of this place stands Ulrich, young in body, weathered in spirit. His shoulders are broad, sculpted by plow and axe. His hands calloused from rope and blade. But his eyes, those tired, storm-colored eyes, speak of burden far heavier than soil or stone. He is the son of the land. And the land is dying. Ulrich stares across the fields his father once called golden. Now they lie dull and cracked, thin tufts of brown struggling through dirt that no longer drinks. The third failed harvest. The final warning. Even the trees, those old witnesses, seem quieter. Their leaves fell early. Their trunks rot from within. Still he digs. He kneels beside a broken row of stalks, hands trembling as he coaxes brittle roots from the ground. The earth does not yield. It resists, as if it has grown tired of giving. He clenches a fistful of dirt, dry, cold, dead. He releases it slowly. It scatters like memory. The villagers say the gods have turned away, that the well spirits are angry, that some curse was brought down when the last lord was buried without a blessing. Ulrich does not speak of curses. He knows the truth. The land has simply stopped listening. And yet, he stays. Others have left, slipped away in the dark, chased stories of fertile valleys to the south, or gold beneath northern stone. But Ulrich remains, because his father's bones are buried beneath this soil, because the cottage roof still leaks where his mother once patched it, because the orchard still has the rope swing his sister tied before the fever took her. He stays for things that no longer speak, for things that no longer grow. Behind him, smoke coils into the sky, someone's fire struggling to live, the baker's chimney perhaps, or what's left of it. A crow lands on the fence post beside him. It watches with glassy patience. Crows never leave. They are the only ones who thrive. Ulrich wipes the sweat from his brow, though the air is cold. He moves to the next row, drops to his knees again. The blade of his spade chips a stone, sending a dull echo through the ground. He whispers something, maybe a curse, maybe a prayer. The two often sound the same now. A wind sweeps through the valley, sharp, sudden. It scatters loose leaves, rattles shutters, and carries with it the dry cry of some child coughing behind closed doors. Ulrich looks up. The village moves, barely. A woman hauling water with shaking arms. A boy dragging a net to the stream, knowing it will return empty. An old man tending an unlit forge, still keeping up the ritual, as if heat might return by habit alone. They move with urgency, not the kind born from hope, but from necessity. Every motion, every errand, is a defense against despair. They must keep moving, or else remember. Ulrich stands, his knees ache. He is only 27, but he feels older than the church bell that no longer rings. He walks the edge of the fields, past the worn fence line his father built, past the stone that marks his grandfather's grave. The letters have worn away, but Ulrich knows where it is. He kneels beside it, places a hand on the stone. "I'm trying," he says. No one hears him, except the wind, except the land. He remembers when he was a boy, when the fields bloomed golden, when laughter echoed from hill to hill, when his mother sang while pulling weeds and his father drank cold well water and called him strong. He remembers believing this place would never change. Now it is barely recognizable. The animals are sick, the wells are shallow, the people speak only in needs and warnings. No one speaks of joy, not anymore. He turns, eyes scanning the forest beyond the last row of crops, dark, dense, whispering. No one hunts there now. The game has vanished, and the forest gives back less than it takes. Still, he walks toward it, because the soil here has nothing left, because even barren land looks fertile compared to despair. He finds a patch of ground where the moss still grows, kneels again, digs, not with spade, with hands, fingers raw against stone and root. After a while, he finds something, a single bulb, thin, weak, alive. He cups it, cradles it like flame. It will not feed a family, but it proves the earth is not yet dead. He breathes, a long uneven breath, not relief, but resistance. He stands, looks to the sky. The clouds are still there, still heavy, still unmoved, but something inside him shifts, not hope, something quieter, endurance. He walks back to the village, past the chapel, past the dying oak, past the house, with no smoke, and as he passes the well he hears something, not much, just a drop, but it echoes. He turns, listens again, another drop. It falls into darkness, a sound so small it would mean nothing to most. But Ulrich smiles, because the land remembers, and that means, it might forgive. Night falls quickly in the village. Not as a gentle descent, but like a curtain drawn in haste. One moment there is color, the next, only shadow. Darkness pours in from the forest edge, like black ink spilled across parchment. The air thickens. The scent of burning pine drifts through the damp breeze, smoky and sweet. It clings to skin, to hair, to memory. The glow of hearth fires flickers behind warped shutters, casting trembling silhouettes upon crumbling stone. Wooden beams creak in tired rhythm. They do not cry out, only sigh beneath the weight of too many winters, too many stories pressed into their grain. The village does not speak, it endures, and at its farthest edge, where moss creeps up the stone walls and the forest whispers in tongues too old to name, sits Asta. She is small beneath the night, a bundle of wool and longing, her legs pulled to her chest, her arms wrapped tight. She sits on the steps of her family's home, a place more structure than shelter, and watches the stars try to pierce through the clouds. They do not succeed. Only a few break through. Cold, distant, indifferent, she listens to the forest breathe, the rustling of leaves, the howl of some unseen creature, the hush of wind slipping through bark and bone. All of it sounds alive, but none of it feels kind. Still she listens, not because she seeks comfort, but because it reminds her she is not alone. Her family sleeps behind her, or tries to. Her father, the blacksmith, lies near the hearth, his broad chest rising and falling in pained rhythm. His hands, once strong enough to shape steel, now tremble even at rest. The heat has stolen his strength, the hunger, his endurance. Her mother sleeps beside the youngest siblings, curled protectively around them like a final shield. The blanket is too thin, the air is too cold, but she clings to them anyway. They have nothing more to give, and yet, they stay. Asta presses her fingers into the wood beneath her, feeling the splinters bite. She does not flinch. Pain is a language she now understands. It speaks clearly in the empty bowls, in the worn shoes, in the tightening of belts, and the silence at supper. But beneath the ache is something else. A quiet hum, a flicker, not rebellion, not yet, just awareness. She knows this life is not as it should be, that survival should not feel like slow drowning, that children should not count how many days since the last full meal. But no one says these things aloud, not in the village, not in front of the gods, who may be listening or worse, may not be. Her eyes drift upward again, toward the stars. They seem so far away, too far to care, too far to hear her whisper, but she speaks anyway. Not a prayer, not quite, just a thought, shaped into breath. I don't want to be forgotten, she says. It leaves her mouth like steam, vanishing into the air before anything can catch it. She leans her head back against the doorway, remembers when her father would lift her high, before his arms failed him, when her mother would sing as she brushed her hair, before the hunger dimmed her voice, when her siblings would play in the dirt and dream of castles, not crumbs. Now their laughter is rare, now dreams cost too much. She closes her eyes, but sleep does not come. Only the ache of waiting. In the distance a wolf howls, but it does not frighten her, not like the silence, not like the thought of another year like this one. She rises quietly, bare feet touching the cold stone, steps into the dark. Not far just beyond the fence, to where the trees begin to gather. The forest is not safe, but it is honest. It takes without apology, it hides, but it also grows. She crouches beside a patch of damp earth, runs her fingers through the moss, the roots, the frost-tipped leaves. Here things still fight, still cling, still reach upward, even in the dark, even without sun, even forgotten. She plucks a small flower pale and trembling, and cradles it in her palms. It is nothing, it is everything. A piece of beauty the village has not stolen yet. She returns to the steps, sits again. The flower rests in her lap, glowing faintly in the lantern light. She stares at it for a long time, not because it offers hope, but because it proves that something soft can still live beside sorrow. She thinks of the other children, of the ones too weak to speak, of the ones who've stopped asking questions, and for the first time, a thought sharper than sadness cuts through her chest. They deserve more, not just food, not just warmth, but joy, wonder, story, something to believe in. Her hands curl into fists. She may be young, but she is not helpless. Tomorrow she will find herbs, not to heal, but to color the broth. She will draw something in the dirt for the little ones, a sun, perhaps, or a tree that still bears fruit. She will sit beside her father and hold the tongs steady, so his hands can rest. She will ask her mother to hum, even if her voice breaks. Not because it will fix anything, but because it will remind them they are still alive, and life deserves more than just waiting to end. The lantern beside her flickers once, then steadies. The wind calms, the stars shine a little brighter, or maybe her eyes have simply adjusted to the dark. Asta leans back, and for the first time in weeks, she smiles, not wide, not long, but true, because somewhere beneath the ash, a spark still breathes, and she has decided, it will not go out.